Hey up everyone. So, what do you really want from an adventure motorcycle? What really makes an ADV bike great? First, let's be clear, this will be different for everyone. Maybe one of the questions we should first ask is what is an adventure motorcycle? But that is a whole different rabbit hole. I would personally argue that every ride on any bike can be the most glorious adventure. For now, if we accept that an adventure motorcycle is a bike that should be able to tackle a wide variety of riding situations and different terrains, we should be fairly close to the mark. The latest breed of ADV bikes have been the biggest selling sector for years now, but the bikes seem to have changed a lot from the ideas of the early ADV bikes like the BMW R80, the Africa Twin and Cagiva Elefant. Yet now companies like Ducati, Honda and MV Agusta release bikes that try to emulate the look of those classic bikes of the past. If we ask the question, what do you really want from an adventure motorcycle? We need to look at two specific things. The things I do want and the things I don't want. Then we have to ask the question, are the various manufacturers really trying to build what we want? You would think that was a no-brainer, but things are really that simple. First, let's try to set down some wants. It has to be capable of doing high mileage in comfort. It has to be reliable. It needs the power and running gear to deal with adverse conditions, and it needs to be easy to service, with good parts availability and long service intervals. Then, let's look at some of the things I don't want. I don't want too much weight, and I don't want expensive repair bills when it inevitably gets dropped in the rough stuff. These, to me, are my most basic needs, and I think we can all agree on these. But after that, it starts to get personal. The big problem for me, more than the bikes themselves, is the misleading marketing. I'm not Poltares, and I'm not entering the Dakar. I'm a normal bloke who likes to be able to take the path less trodden, wherever that may lead me, and I want a bike to suit me, not Poltares. Now what I will say first is that the simpler a bike is, the more reliable it will inevitably be. The higher the state of tune the bike is in, the more maintenance it will require too. So that becomes a factor, especially if you intend on keeping the bike long term. If we look at those 2 points alone, a simple bike with a fairly low state of tune, with a big sump capacity, immediately starts to look like the bike to have. Yet if you look across the various ranges, that might be harder to find now than you might think. There are always compromises too. A heavier shaft drive system may not need as much maintenance in the short term, but when it goes wrong, it will cost more. And it might not be in a convenient place or at a time that makes the repair easy. Parts might be available, but if you're mid-tour in a distant land, getting things shipped to you or trying to find somebody who can fix it might not be quite so easy. We're often told we need something or other, and that whatever the new tech is, that it's a real advancement. But is it always true? The simple answer to that is no, not always. Let's take another obvious one, the clutch. Believe it or not, a cable clutch is at its best a beautifully designed, simple mechanism that will work well for years and years with no trouble. For example, the cable clutch on the DL650 V-Strom is now 18 years old. It has had the cable ends greased a few times, but nothing more. And it's as smooth and easy to pull now as it always was, and shows no sign of wear. Yet nowadays, we are told hydraulic clutch mechanisms are so much better. Well, are they? Yes, you can engineer them to be light, but you can do that with a cable clutch too. They might last longer in certain circumstances, but not always. And again, getting seals and hydraulic oil and all the relevant tools while you were off on tour and fixing it or getting it to somebody to fix it might not be quite so easy. In most places around the world, you will find it much easier to find a new cable or fix the old one than it will be to sort out a failed hydraulic clutch. Remember, every year a manufacturer doesn't have something new as their unique selling point, they will lose sales, whether it's better or not. That is the stupidity side of marketing. It is a phenomenon I will call the Nokia effect. Some of you will remember, I'm sure, that before smartphones, Nokia were the big name in mobile phones, and they would release multiple new models every year, many without thoroughly testing them. Their idea was that they would sort out any glitches with returns on the sales. It worked. They sold millions despite many complaints. The complaints got so bad that they decided they would actually do the research and development first until they had a reliable finished product before release. And it cost them so much in sales that after a year they reverted back to the original model. The company never really recovered, but the reality is that any company, whoever they are, is driven by profit, and they will do many things you may never even consider to ensure that profit grows. Let us look at something simple you might not have considered. The old XRV 750 Africa Twin ran a 9.1 compression ratio, whereas the new CRF 1100 Africa Twin, which few would describe as highly tuned, runs a 10.1 compression ratio. Now, that might not sound like a big difference, but multiply the effect of the bigger explosion caused by an average of, say, 5,000 RPM, and unless the engineering is miraculously self-healing, each one of those bangs, although only slightly bigger, will increase wear. Multiply that by a year's riding with a lot of high-speed work, and you can see, I'm sure, why a lower compression ratio engine will, in general, if designed properly, outlast an engine with a higher compression ratio. Let us look at another basic one, and for me, it is one of my pet hates. Outside the world of racing, in my view, there should be no place for plain bearings. Not only are they inferior to roller bearings in every way except weight, when they wear out, it's all but impossible for the average Joe in his garage to do the repair work. No amount of spanners will help you press out and remachine surfaces for plain bearings, whereas the right puller is all you need to extract a roller bearing and replace it. Now that one might be beyond your spannering ability, but imagine the difference in the size of the repair bill. If your focus is extracting the maximum power per gram from the engine, then plain bearings will save you a few grams. But if your focus is longevity and repairability, then an engine with roller bearings will always win, hands down in my opinion. If you can find one these days, that is. You will hear people say the modern engines are so much more reliable, and in some ways they are. However, they are built as throwaway units to be replaced when worn out in some ways. So, for someone who wants an engine that can be repaired indefinitely, they are flawed. The problem is that if the bike is everything you want and you can fix it indefinitely, the company has no repeat customer, and that hits profits. Personally, when I'm embarking on an adventure, my primary focus is getting to the other end in one piece and being able to enjoy it. So speed isn't my focus. I ride well within my limits. So rider modes, multi-level traction control, launch control, quick shifters, anti-wheelie devices and the like make little difference to my enjoyment, other than the hole they leave in my wallet, of course. Even ABS isn't something I personally feel the need for, but I won't argue on that one. What I will say is an easily accessible on-bar single-use button to turn ABS on and off with one click on the fly is something that unfortunately seems very rare. But why? They make so much more sense than control via a menu system that has reset itself 3 times and taken you through multiple options before you can turn the ABS on or off. It just makes no sense from a rider's perspective, wastes riding time, and is simply not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. One thing that also seems sadly hard to find today is ADV bikes with a high level exhaust that doesn't get crushed when the bike falls over on some rocks. It happens. If you actually take the bike off-road and use it as it was meant to be used, things happen. It will inevitably go over at some point, and Sod's Law says that there is always a pile of rocks in the wrong place. I don't want to replace a bent up exhaust or worse when it goes over. One thing I do think that makes a big difference on any bike is good suspension, and on an ADV bike, that is one place things can get very complicated. If, like me, you ride from slick tarmac to rutted tracks with plenty of mud and rocks, you will need to be able to adjust the suspension settings quickly and easily. Some manufacturers will tell you, no you don't worry, our new electronic systems will do it for you. Personally, I like to know what's going on. If I'm carrying a passenger and luggage, I will wind up the preload. So I want an easily adjustable preload. I don't want to be crawling underneath the bike with a C-spanner at the end of every green lane, or if I have to load up with luggage. Adjusters for high and low speed compression and rebound damping are good for anyone who knows how to use them, but if not, you're better leaving that to someone who does. Usually it means that once it's set up for standard use, you might want 2 clicks up or down if the terrain means it will help. But it's as easy as never add something beyond certain limits and always return to the original spec. The reality is, outside of racing, most of us wouldn't notice those small differences because we don't ride the bikes to those limits, at least not often. I have my moments, but they tend to be not while I'm away on tour, so any damage is more easily repairable. Another pet hate of mine is mudguards. I want a mudguard that will survive the rigours of sharp limestone rocks being thrown at it without shattering. But I don't want something that is going to flap around like a beaver's tail at 70 miles an hour. We get ADV bikes with crappy dirt bike mudguards or standard ABS plastic ones that leave an inch or so maximum between tyre and mudguard, but nothing in between. Yes, you can modify them, but why should I have to? Why can't I have a stiff but pliable, shatterproof, semi-rigid mudguard about 2 or 3 inches clear of the tyre so small rocks aren't trapped, but at the same time, me and the bike don't get covered in crap every time I go off-piste? Is it really so hard? A rear rack designed to carry a decent load of luggage also seems quite basic to me on a bike like this. Having a load capacity of 20 kilos plus should be another no-brainer to me, but these days you're more likely to see a 5 kilo weight limit, it seems. What that means is once you have 2 bottles of water and a sandwich in your new aluminium top box, it's going to be overloaded. So unless you just want it to put your helmet in at the coffee shop, it's basically useless. We all have personal wants, and that's the area where there are bound to be disagreements. That can be easily remedied by the multiple models and specs made available for added extras though. Is it really so much to ask? Some of my own personal wants would be a very comfortable pillion seat, because a happy passenger makes life better. A low compression 600 to 800cc twin cylinder lump producing around 70 horsepower and 70 newton meters of torque to balance smoothness, performance, bottom end power and efficiency. Because 70 horsepower is more than enough to carry me, a passenger and a full load of luggage along a highway at legal speeds with enough power to spare for overtaking and enough grunt for the steepest climbs. A sub 200 kilo fully fueled weight with a 20 litre plus low centrally mounted fuel tank. Because of that, I can pick it up on the trails and have a 250 to 300 mile tank range. a removable rear subframe with a minimum 200 kilo total load capacity, because I don't want to have to worry about overloading the bike if I have a passenger and luggage, or bending the subframe when it inevitably rolls over. A high level exhaust, because anything else just makes no sense. A 21-inch front and 18-inch rear spoked wheel for tubeless tyres, because tubeless tyres make more sense for me, and a 21-inch front makes rolling over uneven surfaces a lot easier. Remote spanner-free preload adjustable suspension front and rear with progressive springs, basic compression and rebound damping adjustment, and about 10 inches of travel, because I want to be able to crank up the preload quickly and easily if I have a bigger load, and take all the bumps when needed. And that all-important, easily accessible ABS delete button, because if I see a bit of track ahead that I know will cause problems for ABS, I need to be able to turn it off on the fly quickly and easily while I'm riding. And finally, I will include shaft drive. Now this one isn't a deal breaker for me, and it needs to be a reliable shaft, but after all my years of chain adjustment, I am simply getting bored of it. So there you go. I'm still looking, despite the myriad of bikes on offer. It seems no one makes the bike I want anymore. What would your wanted list include? Let me know in the comments below. I'm interested to see what the general consensus is, because I know my list won't necessarily be what everyone wants. I would guess that there will be a split between those who want more power and those who want less weight. But it will be interesting to see what all of your wants are. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great week. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help, and you get to join the ranks of the best motorcycle community on YouTube. It makes sure, at least in theory, that you find out about the new videos first. But do remember to check back, because YouTube does have an annoying habit of resetting everything every so often and not letting you know. Do remember to check out the website too, and the Redbubble page, as well as the blogs and articles about the videos. You get the best biker merchandise anywhere. And always remember, keep your spanners close and your keys even closer. Ride free, everyone!